So Becky, you have good news for me?
Okay, so transfer.
I'll run up and grab her.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that was one of my guesses.
Oh, I thought you were looking on the audience.
Oh yeah, no, I
Oh, I see it. I can't see the camera.
no, you can't. Yeah. Take a picture.
The camera that's
Yeah,
behind the
channel
camera.
3.
See, I can't see it.
Did you eagle? You got one? I should go that way, there's only one person out.
That's okay.
Thank you.
I could have got it for you, Mike. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of people talking about the library.
Red shirt. No, I was checking. Yeah. This is kind of curious. I didn't make that meeting in June, what people thought about the different options, especially the roundabouts. I'm not sure if everybody else. Roundabouts, yeah. I like it a lot.
Where's Jack?
He still has 6 minutes.
Here he comes.
Early today.
I feel like it's deja vu all over again, Warren. You ask that question every week, and just as you do, he
Yeah,
walks
just so you know, here he comes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So you use the 2 lanes to make it.
I give Jack a hard time every time. City council meetings
Some
anyway.
people, they're so timid in it too, and that's just as bad.
I know, Bill.
Oh yeah, it's 25 after. Hey Jack,
You know, since when does anybody stop? I mean, can't,
how are you?
people don't even stop us.
How was your coffee today? So they did warm it up for you.
Yeah, I wore my cup too.
I know, that's what I meant.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Hey, Jack.
Jack.
How's it going? Good. Good. Hey, Jack, what's the topic as far as one special meeting?
How are you, Nick? Good to see you.
First one I ever encountered in my life.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
high school basketball.
Yeah, no, I mean, everybody has a lot.
That's why we didn't do it, because I said, oh, you didn't? No, we don't, we sit, we didn't sit where we should. Oh, so now I just want to find out what to do. We can call back, so.
So you didn't disappoint me.
Couldn't do that again. There was one receipt on here that wasn't itemized, so they just accept it because it doesn't say what it's for. This one
So we're, I thought we would do that.
doesn't say what it's for. It has to show, like, it has to be the kind of receipt that shows me that it's food.
We might as well just meet every other day.
It doesn't show what you got. That's the only, everything else.
Okay, well, something's better than nothing.
The big part of it is that.
Right.
I guess. Is it a credit card?
I have to get on the high road here.
There you go.
Put me in my place consistently, and when I fight back.
You don't want to be sitting too low.
Did you ever say, yes, I didn't, what is this? Is this actually from you? Okay, I didn't think so, that's why I didn't click on it. I was looking for language.
I've had a couple, I had one from Jim.
Yep. I had one from Jim at like 3 o'clock in the morning about wanting to get together and meet.
You use that somewhere?
I had one that I was said, hey, can I ask you a favor? And I was like, yeah, sure, Jim. And then I was busy and then I was like, could you go buy 4 Apple gift cards? I was like, oh, just kidding. And then I looked at my email address, it's like, oh, that's.
You know what? I think I did get that one.
But if you're committed.
Because I remember having that. And it's like, I don't get it.
So how do I delete, do I have to go into it to delete it? I'm not quite sure what to do.
I see there are lots of people here that want to talk about it. Lots of people here that
I
want to
didn't
talk.
think so, but I thought.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I just clicked, I didn't open it, I just clicked on it and then pressed delete. So,
Just hit it?
yeah. And then,
Everybody has the right to tell.
trash can, garbage.
That's an experiment.
is loaded for bear. You at least have some.
So did speaking, I didn't think so.
So we can reach them.
I'll have that conversation.
So Jenny, since you're not there, you're no longer involved with this, right?
I used to actually work there for a summer. Daytime bartender, Saturdays and Sundays.
I disagree that it's too late, but
I know, but you know. Yeah, I was there for a while on Saturday, and he's pretty down. But I bet if they put the doors open and had the jukebox playing, she'd probably hear it too. You know.
see, I don't even know if they have it.
But it, but I'll follow up with Sandy.
And then you can at least have that.
I told Camila to expect a phone call.
Just get them in the loop.
Yep.
So.
I was gonna say by area. Good enough, so constituent side. It's my boss.
But it's not my house to see that.
I told him, maybe I told him.
Just learn to put up with what they're saying, what they said.
I get it.
I don't understand.
I have like a situation with a lot of dogs. It's just sometimes.
Not mine.
I have gone,
They had another meeting in here.
There we go. She didn't know which switch to hit.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6:30 p.m. I will call the Tuesday, July 19th, 2022 meeting of the Superior Common Council to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. While I'm waiting for the deputy clerk, or for the clerk, would the deputy clerk mind calling the roll? You can just read them. They're all here.
Hello, I'd like to call roll.
Mike, never mind. Camila's back. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Ledeen?
Here.
Counselor Van Sickle?
Here.
Counselor Bender?
Here.
Counselor Sweeney?
Here.
Counselor Finnessy?
Here.
Counselor Elm?
Here.
Counselor Ludwig?
Here.
Counselor Herrick?
Here.
Counselor Johnson?
Present.
Anyway, their name plates are swapped. Counselor Vasky?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Item 3.1 is a public hearing for a resolution recommending approving the amended 2022 Community Development Block Grant Action Plan.
If there is no objection, I will open the public hearing. Would anybody like to speak in the public hearing? This is just relating to the CDBG action plan. Would anybody like to speak in the public hearing? Finally, would anybody, councilors or public, like to speak to the CDBG action plan? Hearing no speakers, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing and approve the resolution.
Motion to do so.
Second.
Motion is by Councilor Bender, second by Councilor Herrick. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Item 3.2 is the Blotnick Bridge Reconstruction Overview presented by Mark Bowker, WisDOT Project Manager. Welcome.
Hello. Aye.
She's working on it.
There we go.
I move too much, so, okay, I'll try to stand still.
I'm Mark Balker. I'm with the Wisconsin DOT. I've been working with them in the Northwest region here for almost 30 years now. I started out my career up in the Superior office here as the traffic engineer. And I did the traffic engineering for about 13, 14 years, and now I'm the planning engineer for the Northwest region. So very familiar with this area. Lived in town here for about 12 years and have been kind of migrating south through our different offices. So just a little background on me. Not quite coming up yet, so.
It's on full screen on yours?
It's on the presentation mode. There we go. Let's try this. There we go. All right. I was asked to give a quick presentation to kind of keep you guys up to date as to where we're at with this project. Tried to pare it down. I'll try to keep it fairly brief, but I do want to go through a lot of the history as to where we got to where we're at, and then kind of go into that a little bit more. With this, the Blotnick Bridge, it is a border bridge with Minnesota. And we kind of share the bridges as we go down the border between the two states. So the Blotnick Bridge, Minnesota is actually the lead agency on this bridge, but we are working as partners with this when we're going through the design. I'm the project manager on the Wisconsin side, and so my contact is on all the information that's out there. So if anybody has questions, they can contact me. Pat Houston is the District 1, which is Duluth, a major project engineer for Duluth, and so he's their main contact over there. You may have heard, if you've seen any of these as well, John Krishak, he's their project manager on the Duluth side. So we're all working as one team. So even though Minnesota is the lead, we're very much involved with this project. We're making sure that everything that we look at is looking at the interest of Wisconsin as well. It's not just, hey, what can we do? What can we get done? What do they want? So just wanted to make that very upfront with you guys, so you guys are very aware that we, even though, you know, the main website is out on the Minnesota page, it is a group, a team that's working together on this. This is a little bit pared down presentation that we did from this last month when we gave the public meeting at the library here in town. So we're going to go through a little bit of an overview of what the project is, what our purpose and need, just kind of stepping you through how we got to where we're at today. Look at those alternatives, kind of show you where we're at right now, what what we recommended at this last public meeting, what are our next steps going to be, and what is our timeline with all of that. So just a little bit of history on the bridge. It did open for traffic in 1961. It's just slightly under 8,000 feet long. I believe that's the second longest bridge in Minnesota, and I think it's the third longest in the Wisconsin's inventory. It had 4 lanes of traffic, 2 in each direction, roughly 33,000 cars a day. That count was from 2019. We know it did vary the last couple of years here a little bit, but so we're using those numbers saying, hey, that's a pretty realistic number. And it has a lot of importance for not only the Duluth and the Superior, but also for the region, for the state of Wisconsin, for the state of Minnesota, and actually international traffic on there. Currently, right now, it is load posted for about 60% of the standard weight. What that is legal loads up to 80,000 pounds can travel over the bridge, but we aren't allowing any permit loads of heavier loads on the structure because of the deterioration that's up there. So with that deterioration is kind of what triggered us off to saying, hey, we need to start looking at a project out here. So through the environmental process, we have to look at first, you don't want to solve the problem and then make it, okay, let's make sure that this is what our statement is. So we start off with what is the statement and what are your needs out there, so when you come up with the solution, it meets all of those needs instead of going in the reverse. So very generic statement, hey, the purpose of this project is to provide this interstate connection across the St. Louis Bay that won't restrict the movements of freight and provide that local, regional, and international movement in a reliable and efficient manner. So that's the purpose of the entire project. That then we start balancing everything against that. So then we go through what are our real needs out here on this project. So the first one there, the primary need, is definitely the driving condition of it. Bridge deterioration is occurring out there, so that center truss area, there's about 3 spans in the middle that are that truss, a little different design than the rest of the bridge, starting to have deterioration, and it's becoming too expensive to do repairs on it. So they're looking at saying roughly the 2030 time frame, we're saying we need to have that portion of the bridge completed for sure at that point. Otherwise, we're really going to have to start reducing more traffic allowed on it. So while we did that, we said, hey, that's the main thing that triggered this need right now. We started looking at vehicle safety. Hey, what kind of crash rates do we have out here? What's the level of service? And then the mobility, you know, how are traffic getting around? What are some of the problems that we're experiencing? Like I said, I had started out as a traffic engineer here in the Superior. I know we've looked at this end of the bridge for many years, and I've been always out there trying to, what are things that we can do to try to address some of the problems that are occurring out there. Like at the bridge right now, you have that loop, there's that signal now. Used to be a stop sign. Well, we were having all kinds of crashes at the stop sign, so we said, hey, let's try the signal. Well, now we have the signal, now we have backups where we didn't have backups before. So there's always some trade-off. So that's one of the other things that we said, this is very important that we need to look at and address when we're doing that. Those are, Minnesota, when they do their project needs, they separate them in primary and secondary needs, and they say the primary needs are ones that absolutely, if it doesn't meet these needs, we can't do the project no matter what. The secondary needs are ones that we really need to address if we can. If there's some reason that we can't, we won't, but we will try to address them, and that's the walkability and bikeability. How do we address that? And as you'll see as I go through this, all of our alternatives look at that and have that opportunity on the existing structure or the proposed structures. And so we are considering that with all of them. The decision of will it be included or not hasn't been come to a final conclusion yet, but all of our alternatives have that opportunity to include it so far. Couple of other big things that we have to consider when we're doing it is your maritime and freight navigation. Bridge, going under the bridge, that main span of the bridge, I believe we have 120 feet of clearance under there to get those ships under there. We have to maintain that height. We have to maintain the horizontal opening to get those in there. And we can't, hey, we're going to close the freight, because there is no detour for that. So you can't close the shipping channel and detour it. So we have to maintain that all the time where we're doing it. Social, economic, and environmental aspects are also things that we have to look at. So we call them the C impacts. The NEPA process is the National Environmental Policy Act. I like to point out to everybody that it isn't just environmental. It isn't just the bugs and the bunnies and the wetlands and we look at the social impact. What are the impact to the people that live in the area? What is the economic impact that is out there? How are we affecting businesses in the area? So we want to make sure we include all of those and look at it. From a project schedule perspective, we're in this top line up here. We're in this trying to get to a preferred alternative and do the environmental documentation. We started this in 2020. The current timeline is saying, hey, it's probably about 2024 before that wraps up completely. We are trying to accelerate that a little bit. We're hoping it's early in 24 when we can get that completed now. Once we go to that, then we go into the preliminary design, and then this final design. All of these designs, you really don't see much difference between them. And then we get down to construction. And the reason on here, this is such a long bar, dotted bar, it's not necessarily known right now. We're in the process of putting in a grant from the infrastructure bill that came through. There's grants for these large bridges. So we're in the process of trying to put that grant together. If we get awarded that grant, there's certain timelines you have to meet as to when you have to start construction and all that. So we kind of moved this originally. We had to start out, end of 28, 29. We said, well, depending on what grants are available and all that, we may be able to accelerate or see some things start as early as 26 out there, depending on how the grants come out. Now, when we gave this presentation, they hadn't given all the details to it yet. Since that time, we have found out that you can phase your grant over a number of years, so we are still applying for it, but we might not have construction that early. It may be looking closer to probably 27 when we'd be looking at maybe starting construction. You know, like I said, we're in that phase, selecting of the preferred alternative. Here's just kind of a breakdown of that. We went through this original developing these concepts. Now we have these alternatives. We're trying to refine those, and we're trying to come up with this recommended preferred. Originally, when we started, we were thinking it's toward the end of 23. Now we're actually hoping that we can actually get that recommended preferred in early 23, hopefully around January timeframe. We've had a lot of public comments out there before. We've had a lot of public meetings as well. You know, our kickoff meeting was back in September of 2020. As you can see, we've had, you know, we met in 21 for purpose and need, then we started doing alternatives. We just had this last meeting in 22. Our next recommendation when we come back to the public, we're hoping in January of 23 that we'll actually have a preferred alternative recommended and said, here's what we want to do. But then we still have, you know, to finish that environmental document that we're, okay, now we have a preferred alignment configuration. What other details can we refine on this? Can we avoid some other impacts? Can we avoid any relocations if possible? So the environmental document would actually get signed, we're hoping, closer to early 2024 rather than late 24. So we're trying to get everything accelerated, moved up a little bit in the time frame. I'll go through a little, we're on step 3 now is what our presentation was, so a quick recap on where we have been. We started off with this concepts of alignments, and that's kind of hard to see up there, but so what we did is we said, hey, you know, rather than looking at how do we build an interchange or anything, what if the alignment to the bridge, pretty much on the Minnesota side, we said, hey, we're going to start at Garfield Avenue. We had direct connection, keep the bridge exactly where it is, tie right back into Hammond Avenue like it does. That was option 1. Option 2, when we get down to the Superior side, let's just turn the edge of the end of the bridge so it's actually a free flow onto Highway 53 rather than directly onto Hammond. We looked at what if we brought that whole bridge and came right down Connors Point and then tie into 53 down in this area. So that's you know, a little bit to the north of the Perkins, the vet clinic in there is where we had looked at that. So we had looked at those all alignments. We had also looked at tunnel options. You know, can we build a tunnel through here? Can we bring a tunnel under Connors Point? Could we put a tunnel out in the bay? We evaluated all those, went through a lot of screening process for that, and basically ruled out the tunnels, just said that, hey, those aren't a lot of maintenance to maintain those tunnels. They get not very cost effective. Once we start trying to, on the ends, wherever the tunnel comes out, you have at least 1,000 feet where that tunnel is trying to come out of the ground, and then you have to build a big interchange on that. A lot of significant impacts when we started getting into that. So we ruled out those options. Looking at that Connors Point alignment, there was a couple of reasons that one got ruled out. Real tight along Connors Point. There's a rail line out there. There's Main Street, the old road out there. It gets really, really tight right at the southeast corner there. As well as it was going to have some major significant traffic pattern changes in Superior. You know, right now the business district's kind of down in this area, North End, Tower Avenue. If we brought all the traffic over here, it's really going to change the traffic patterns in Superior of almost looking like it's trying to bypass all of the business district. So we looked at that and said, that's not a good idea for this community. We want to keep the traffic, the business traffic in here, the residents that are trying to get to South Superior and all that. Why have them go way out of their way if we can keep one of these other 2 connections? So we looked at both of those connections. Let's continue straight on to Hammond Avenue, or just turn the end of the bridge and tie in somewhere right around Grand Avenue is where it would tie in. So we went through, and with all that screening information, we went to Federal Highways about that. We went to the agencies, and they agreed with us, saying, yep, those 2 types of connections are good. From there, then we went in and said, hey, how do we refine those 2 connections now? First thing that we always do is what are our goals when we're refining them? What is the evaluation criteria we're going to use to evaluate them? Because if you do it after you design it, then you make your evaluation to fit what you want the answer to be. So if you pick your evaluation, here's the things I'm going to use to screen it, then develop your alternatives, you're not doing any preconceived notions on it. So we make sure we try to go through what are our evaluations, what are the things we're going to be looking at. When we did that, we kind of looked at it and said, hey, we're going to split two things. From First Street to the north, we're going to call that the alignment area. You know, do we do it right on the existing bridge? Do we move it 50 feet to the west or 50 feet to the east? Those are the different alignments. When we get down to the interchanges, basically from First Street to the south, those could all tie into any one of those, but let's evaluate them separately rather than trying to tie them all together. So the things we looked at with each one, how do we improve the vehicle safety and mobility? Again, that's real hard to read, but we had a number of things we are addressing. One right now, the deficiency is this loop ramp that comes off is really low speed. I believe it's about a 20 mile an hour design speed, way below standards of what we would build now. We say a minimum of 35 miles an hour. We have a lot of crashes of traffic that's coming straight down the bridge onto Hammond Avenue. That high speed to the low speed. The railroad track that's down here sometimes will back that queue all the way up onto the bridge. You're coming off the bridge at a high speed, and all of a sudden that traffic stopped in front of you. The signal over here that I mentioned, we're getting queues both ways. In the morning, coming that northbound is really backed up, creating crashes out there. We get a large number of traffic that actually comes down the bridge, takes a left onto 5th, gets over to Grand to jump back on. And I believe that used to be all the way to Catland, but because of that high speed going through there, the city put in the 4-way stop at the Grand and 5th there to try to keep that traffic from flying all the way down 5th. So that was another one of these things. We're trying to mitigate some of those impacts. So we're trying to avoid, let's not send highway traffic that's wanting to get on the bridge through a local neighborhood. Make that neighborhood more friendly for the people that live in it. Bike and ped, like I said, right now the only way to get across between the two cities is on the Bong Bridge. It's a real narrow, about a 6-foot sidewalk, I believe. As you can see from the biker, I don't know if you could get past him when he's trying to ride across there or not. So all of our alternatives we're looking at trying to, can we accommodate then? What are the right-of-way impacts out there? What are the wetland impacts out there? What are the contaminated soils? This north end, north of the highway is it's all industrial and commercial up in that area. We're anticipating a lot of contaminated materials up there in the soils, so we're going to have to look at that. What are the construction time frames? How long will the bridge have to be closed down while you're building it? How long will it have to the entire construction? We'll look at each of those. Are there any parks and recreational facilities that we impact? On the Wisconsin side, when we change those alignments, we're not necessarily hitting anything, but this picture is the boat landing on the Minnesota side, right underneath the bridge. So we have to look at what are the impacts are we going to have on that if we move the bridge one way or the other. Physical and economic diversity. What are the different aspects of the community? North End up here does have a higher population of lower income, less households that necessarily have vehicles. So we're looking at how do we not negatively impact them? Are there ways we can enhance that community as well by going through here? Traffic pattern changes, kind of like I mentioned, why we ruled out that Connors Point alignment is, there will be a change if we look at changing that alignment coming down onto Hammond. There's businesses along this corridor on Hammond that say, hey, we don't want that traffic to go away. But we got to balance that from how much of that traffic not only was just cutting across 5th Street, but was maybe taking Hammond to Belknap and then right back onto the highway anyways. Were they doing it because they saw the backup at the signal when they were coming over the bridge? So we want to look at what do we think the actual volumes would out here, how would that change those businesses and not only during construction when the bridge is closed, but actual after the completion, how will that change the traffic volumes out there? Another thing we're really looking at is this bridge height right here over Howard's Pocket. Like I mentioned, the main span, which is out here, is 120 feet of clearance under the bridge. To get into Howard's Pocket, into Fraser Shipyard, it's only 100 feet of clearance. Doesn't sound like a lot, but there's a number of the bigger ships that they can't get into their facility. So they have to go elsewhere in the harbor to try to work on some of those ships. So we're looking at, is that something that we can do? Can we raise that, get that little extra clearance into there so they can get some more of the ships in there? Everything has a trade-off, though. I do that, and now the steep grade that's coming down into Superior just becomes a little steeper, possibly. So you got to trade off. We can enhance it a little bit more for this business, but we have a trade-off for the traveling public. So a couple of different alternatives have a different option on what we can do with that. So like I said, we kind of broke it down in these two areas, north of First Street, south. I'll go through these alignments real quick. We started out with 6 of them on the existing alignment. Of course, you always look at on the existing alignment, hey, can we shift the bridge to the west? And this goes back into that construction duration versus closure duration. With this alternative, you could start building this bridge here, build it all the way to about here before you ever close the bridge. So you'd gain a 1.5 years, maybe 2 years of construction before you actually had to close the bridge if you did something like that. Could we go to the east side? Can we do the same thing over there? Same reason. Hey, what if we only shifted the main span so we could build this portion of it? But hey, when we start getting into the area that's developed, if we try to stay on alignment as much as possible, can we shift it the other way and try the same thing? And then, is there a combination that would work on that? I'm going to back up to my first one again because I forgot I had added this on each one up in the right-hand corner. So what we presented on the 21st of last month was, here's what our recommendation is. We're going to recommend that we continue to look at this alignment of staying on the existing alignment. We're not going to look at a total shift of the entire structure to the west. We're not going to look at an entire shift to the east. We will continue to look at this one where we shift the main span to the west, but then we try to stay on alignment as much as we can once we get to the developed areas. And then again, not recommending the one where we shift to the east and then the combination. Now the reason for those, the one thing that we found out when we were going through all those differentiators, the one thing that really stood out with all these that we're not recommending is impacts to businesses that are on slip access or harbor access. That's the one thing that really defined it. If we come over here and we take away this access area for Fraser Shipyard, how do you replace that? Is there anywhere else to put them in the harbor? Well, I can't kind of split their business and expect you build half the ship over here and then you do the rest of it over there. So we met with them and talked with them. What are your plans for this? We said, hey, that really falls out. Same thing on the other side, CHS, the grain elevators. Currently, it's a vacant parking lot, but they're talking about some of the changes that are coming down the line of rail cars, length of rail trains that are coming to their facilities is probably going to be increasing. They're going to need more storage area for those trains. Hey, if we take this parking lot out, they can't add tracks to it, so therefore it's a negative impact for them. Then they have to figure out where can they do their trains. Out here on the end of Connor's Point, AMI is on the end there. They have that marina there. They're looking at making it more of a commercial marina. They have a boat launch right there. If we're on the east side, we're impacting them. So that's why our recommendations of taking those out was because we had the big impacts on those commercial developments that are very dependent on that water access, on that slip access. So if we can avoid them, it's better. So the two that we stayed with of the on alignment or that shifting the main alignment to the west, and then once we get into Superior, stay on alignment, had the least amount of negative impact on those businesses. So then we went down to First Street and went south of First Street and said, hey, what are the options that we can look at different interchanges? And like I said, we did We kept that connection of saying, hey, what if we come right down, stay on Hammond Avenue, direct the bridge right onto it? What can we do to start addressing a lot of the concerns? Hey, some sort of control down here. And I'm going to point this out at the beginning. We have a roundabout here. We're showing a roundabout. All these interchanges, we have roundabouts shown. The reason we're showing roundabouts is because they have the biggest footprint. And at this point, we haven't decided, should this intersection be a roundabout? Should it be a signal? Should it be a stop sign? But I want to show the worst case scenario saying, hey, if this alternative was picked, this is the worst case scenario that we could end up with at this intersection of the impacts out there. So all of these, we're showing a lot of roundabouts in all these alternatives, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what our intention is or what would be built. Once we select a preferred alternative, then we'll look at every individual intersection by itself and say which is the best for this intersection. And hopefully that'll help us reduce some of the impacts. So on this one, this is that direct connection. We found a way to get the northbound and southbound to not have the signal over here. Hey, let's put control down here. That would help control those speeds coming down the bridge. We have some few other loop ramps. Need to find out how to get 3rd Street, which is Highway 35, down to the connect to the south and to get onto the bridge. Start building other streets over here. A lot of impacts out here. So what we're recommending is this direct connection to Hammond Avenue. We don't carry forward. We don't look at it any further. And that's that comment period that we're looking at right now, saying, do you agree with our recommendations? So the next 4 interchanges here that we're going to look at are, let's take the main bridge and actually hook the end of it, connect it directly onto Highway 53. One of the things I am going to point out on here, the orange is bridge and then yellow is roadway on ground. Some of it, in here, may have some retaining walls to get it raised up. But if you'll notice, all of these come down past Grand Avenue, and we actually show bridges on the ramp. So the intent was, by raising this coming down, we could possibly either get that extra clearance over Howard's Pocket or flatten that grade coming into Superior a little bit by keeping this up higher, as well as we could have Grand Avenue go underneath the highway instead of that at-grade intersection right now that we have a lot of crashes at. So it would provide that opportunity to get across from the neighborhood to the businesses to the north to get to their jobs, and not necessarily have to try to navigate the highway to get across it. So these, a couple of different interchange options that we have kind of shown here. This one is, again, still trying to, hey, how much of that traffic really wants to get onto Hammond? But to do that, we got to make sure we have some sort of good control here so we're not ending up with that free flow movement coming down. It's an offset diamond. It works. All the movements are provided there. It's just maybe a little driver expectation might not be exactly there, but it has some advantages to it. Then we looked at, if you look at this portion of it, that's more of a standard diamond interchange. And again, we're showing roundabouts because of the bigger footprint. And then we're saying, hey, you get, you exit, you turn left or right to, if you want to go in or out of the community. Once you get over to here, then we'd have to figure out how do we decide if you want to go to Hammond or get onto Highway 35, 3rd Street onto Tower Avenue. So we'd have some sort of intersection there. This one tightens everything up. These are called single point urban interchanges. Instead of 2 intersections, you have 1 intersection right under the bridge. On this case, they would be underneath on all of these. And then again, you turn left or right to go to the community, and then, how do we get that connection between Hammond and Highway 35 as well? We did have one other one saying, hey, there's a lot of bridges. All these on-ramps, they're going to be a little bit steeper grade going on there. Is there a way we can avoid some of that? So we looked at, we have this connection to Hammond coming up to 3rd. What if we just took 3rd Street all the way over to basically Frazier's and connected out down here? And this would be a right in, right out. You wouldn't be able to get to southbound 53. It eliminates a lot of the ramps over there and reduces some of the impacts that we have to the commercial businesses in there, but it creates some misdirection for traffic. Traffic on Hammond now, to get onto the bridge, you got to come up, you got to come over to here, back down, and loop around. There's some advantages to it, but a little bit more misdirection, a little bit more circuitous. What we didn't necessarily put on this one though is, do we do control down here as well? Because that exit ramp coming off of the bridge is a straight free flow right onto Hammond as well. So that would be something else if we carry this one forward further. What we were recommending we carry it forward, as we evaluate it further, we'd have to start looking at that as well. So those are really the recommendations that we're doing. I got to see if yep, I got a picture on there. So we're recommending we carry these 4 interchanges forward, and that we don't carry that direct connection to Hammond for any further evaluation. So here's kind of a summary. Here's the 4 that we're looking at moving forward. If we get no opposition, or I should say nobody saying, hey, you missed this, you should be considering this, this is what we'll carry forward and continue into our step 4 and try to refine these alternatives a little better, evaluate them more, see what are the impacts to the traffic, how will the traffic from all the different legs get on and off of the bridge, and what does that cause with the other local traffic in the communities. Next step is our step 4, our range of alternatives. We're going to refine these ones that we're carrying forward, and then, you know, like I said, we're hoping in January of 23 we can actually come back to the public and say, here's our recommended preferred alignment and interchange, and then again go through that process of saying, hey, is this the proper way to do this? Did we miss something or not? We're going to have a little more refined design on each one of those and go through that process. If when we come back out with that process we have that no opposition to our recommendation or our preferred alternative, then it becomes, you know, the official preferred alternative, and then we have roughly a year of going through the actual environmental documentation to that, where we will also look at that preferred alternative and actually refine that design even more. Again, trying to avoid that. Feedback. Always looking from that, from the public, from the communities. On the MnDOT webpage, and the best way to find the MnDOT webpage is just if you Google MNDOT Blotnick Bridge, it's the first one that comes up. About halfway down their page is this interactive map. You can select on it. You can zoom into each of these alternatives. You can add comments to it. You can say, I like this alternative for this reason. Hey, you missed this. You should be considering this. We take all those comments, and when we're doing our evaluation, and make sure that we're including them as well. The official comment period is ending tomorrow, but this always stays up. So anybody who comments afterwards, we do keep checking in on it, see what the comments are. When we get to stage 4, hey, if that comment relates to what we're doing in stage 4, we will consider it. So encourage everybody, you know, from the community, from you guys, go in to do that. If you choose not to do that, myself, give me a call, email, either one. Pat Houston with MnDOT as well. Both of our contacts are available on that website as well. We're both there. Wisconsin, we do have a web page out there as well. Provides a little bit of information, but then also provides a good link to the Minnesota DOT page where more of the information. You can get copies of the documents that we've had. You can they're on there, so you can look at them. Past evaluations, past presentations. You can go on there as well. Like I said, Pat and I are the main contacts. Call us, email us on the web page, whatever you want. All of them work well. They do have a mail address for the Minnesota DOT if somebody wants to do it that way instead. Not sure if you're interested. Project right now, we have some lane closures. I'll just real quickly. It's trying to do some repairs to get this bridge to the point when we get to the replacement option out there. So we're doing some patching, we're doing some cleaning, some painting, trying to fix the downspouts. So right now there's a lot of salt spray that's spraying on the piers, which is creating deterioration. We're trying to get that fixed up. Just trying to prolong the life as long as we can till we get to the actual replacement. Supposedly, hopefully by the end of September, that'll all be done. The bridge will be back open up. I think the TPI is still going on though, so we're still going to have the restrictions once you get across the bridge, but at least the bridge will be open all the way. So that's all I had. Anybody have any questions?
So, counselors, for those of you that have not served on the MIC, I assure you that the length of this presentation is typical for any transportation planner.
Yeah, I know, I was told to cut it down and it didn't work.
This is one of the most important infrastructure projects we're going to face in the next decade. I just emailed the entire council the interactive map if you'd like to weigh in. But are there questions that any of you have right now? Councilor Bender.
No, I just a comment that three of us, Councilor Ledeen, Councilor Van Sickle, and I are on the MIC. So we've all discussed this at length, and we're happy to see it again.
Good.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any further questions about the project? Councilor Sweeney.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. First of all, is the money for the bridge on both sides, Minnesota, is that split 50-50?
Yeah. I mean, the Wisconsin will probably end up with slightly more because the interchange that we build on, the bridge itself will be a 50-50 split.
Okay. And
The interchange is a little bit more, hey, that's on the Wisconsin side. And then any changes they do to the Garfield interchange would be at their expense as well.
So who makes the final decision as to whether you're going to put X or Y or X on them, whatever that might be?
That would basically be our core team that's working on the project, myself, Pat, John Kreshak, the consultant that's helping us with all that information. They don't actually make the decisions, but they're providing all this information for us. We're the main ones that, hey, this is where we're at, we're going to go to that, we're going to move this forward as a recommendation. Now, we move that through each of our regional offices first, verify that. Federal Highway signs off on it as well. Our environmental document is actually a document that the feds sign off on.
Just two more. How is this going to affect the Bong Bridge?
Well, during the closure.
No, not during, when it all opens up again. Is more traffic predicted to be on the Blotnick than on the Bong, or is it going to?
Yeah, because right now I think, before the TPI project is going on there was about 33,000 cars a day on the Blotnick, and I think it's around 10 or 15 on the Bong, so quite a bit less. So right now, the traffic that's on the Bong is the overweight traffic. We're having to route to the Bong Bridge instead, so that would be able to stay on the Blotnick. So overall, we don't think it'll necessarily be a change in traffic volumes in what has been in the past.
So it's roughly 2-to-1, better than 2-to-1.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councilor Al.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. One of the questions I had is, you said you folks are applying for the infrastructure grant money from the feds, and if that doesn't come through, what does that mean for this?
Well, then both states, I didn't have it in here, but our planning estimate, big level estimate, is a $1.8 billion for a complete replacement of this project. So it's an extremely expensive bill or project. So if we don't get that funding, then the states have to really look at it and say, okay, we finished an environmental plan. Here's the preferred alternative. Can we afford to do it with our own funding? Now, I say with our own funding, but it still is a lot of federal dollars, just not the grant money. If not, then we look at, is there ways to stage this project? Like I said, it's that center 3 truss spans that are the most deteriorated. By 2030, we're really saying, unless we do some really some extensive maintenance, we're going to really have to start reducing what can be done out there. Is there a way to replace just a portion of the bridge, that part of it, first? If so, does it fit into the plan? How much money is wasted because we had to tie into something temporary? Can we do some rehab on the rest of the bridge to fix some of the other deterioration? How does that fit into the cost benefit of the whole thing is the questions. So really in the NEPA process, we're more looking at saying, hey, what do we do for the entire bridge? Then we look at, okay, now we get into funding. Can we do it in pieces and do it over time? I think the article in Blue said we've talked about eliminating rehab. So the main thing is we were saying is the center span can't be just rehabbed, but there may be a way that at some point, if we can't get funding, we can replace a portion and rehab part of the rest. But then we anticipate it's 10, 15 years probably before the rest of it would have to be replaced. Due to inflation, every year that we delay the project moves out, costs more money as well. So we're hoping that we can get the funding and do it all at once. It would be the least disruption to the community, because it's one and done. Yes, it's a longer time period, but it's done all at once. And then hopefully we don't have to be back in here for another 30, 40, 50 years before any major rehab.
Any further questions? If not, thank you very much.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
For the presentation.
Thank you.
Just shut your light off there. There you go.
Item 4.1 is the approval of the minutes from the July 5th regular council meeting.
Motion is by Counselor Bender, second by Counselor Elm. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Item 6.1 is a report from Mayor Payne.
Just a reminder, councilors, if you have not submitted your priorities, we'll need those fairly quickly. Again, to say by the end of the week, we have our first, I call them line item, the direct long meetings on the budget tomorrow. And so we'll start looking at our first drafts within the next 2 weeks. So that will be fairly important. For those that I haven't explained our detailed process in the mayor's office, it's mostly a cutting process to begin with. So I'm not adding anything in, any new policies. The goal is to cut it as low as we can and then look at what we can invest in. So I won't even start that likely in the month of July, but those priorities are going to be fairly important. I spent a good part of last week traveling the state, and I'm going to continue to do it, meeting with other city leaders and discussing and talking to the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. Our contractor for Connect Superior has been aggressively reminding us that maps are being drawn right now by the FCC and then eventually the Wisconsin PSC determining coverage for broadband access. That will be one of the main factors that determines eligibility for future grant revenue, and the public gets to weigh in on that, including, in fact, mostly the corporate internet providers. And so we're beginning a lobbying effort to make sure that we are fairly and accurately represented in those maps so that we can be eligible for that grant money. The reason I'm traveling the state is all cities have an interest in this. Within the next 10 to 20 years, almost every city is going to have something that resembles a municipal broadband network, and we all need to be eligible for grants, and it can't just go to rural areas. So I'm meeting with folks directly to work on that. And finally, today, the governor was in Superior touring local businesses, particularly those that were either impacted by or especially started during the pandemic, and just a real fun, exciting day and nice weather where the governor got to see a lot of folks that are doing pretty great and talk about a lot of our upcoming projects and make sure we get state support there. That is my report, unless there are questions.
Item 7.2 is the business of the Public Works Committee from a meeting held July 7th. Is there a report from the chair?
Thank you, Clerk. I will be brief. The committee has a couple of recommendations to move forward, but I will ask that we hold the first recommendation. Let me make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to hold to our next council meeting the first recommendation.
Motion to postpone to the next council meeting, recommendation number 1. Is there a second? Second is motions by Councilor Van Sickle, second by Councilor Sweeney. Discussion on the motion to postpone. Hearing Councilor Fennessy.
Just what's the reason?
I actually asked for this to be postponed on behalf of the Public Works Director. This isn't actually funded yet. We can probably fund it as early as the fall. We may have a funding plan by the next meeting, but it's not funded right now.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I was going to say that this project is funding dependent on the CIP, and that was in our priorities as well.
Is there further discussion on the motion to postpone? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Thank you. I will ask for approval on the second item, and you'll also see that the Public Works Committee discussed a proposal to expand ATV access downtown, and that, of course, is settled policy, and we are not moving that forward as a recommendation to this council. So if there aren't any questions, I would just ask for, I would just make the motion to approve awarding the, sorry, I don't have my iPad, digester cladding project contract to Michael's Construction.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
The motion is by Councillor Van Sickle, second by Councillor Bender to approve the second recommendation of the Public Works Committee. Discussion on that motion. Councillor Sweeney.
Could you just read that again, please?
I'll let the clerk read it.
Thank you.
The recommendation is to approve awarding the digester cladding project contract to Michael's Construction in the amount of $195,000, $349.
For discussion on the motion to approve that contract. Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Councillors, on this next recommendation, I want to explain. I put a lot of thought into this. And it's going to be relevant for future committee meetings while you're in committee. While it's not strictly prohibited, Robert's Rule strongly recommends against negative motions, such as to deny, because it can create some obvious confusion. What happens if a motion to deny fails? That might make some folks think that it is approved. So, however, there are reasons to do it. They almost all exist in committee. And so a committee can do three things: nothing, recommend approval, or recommend denial. So there are reasons to do, it can also hold things in committee, but there are reasons for both. In this particular case, I felt it should go to the council because there was a motion to deny that carried unanimously, and so because it's an actual recommendation, they only recommend things to council. However, it would not be in order. I would not consider it in order to make a motion to deny right now. What you can do, if you wanted to approve it, you can make a motion of that, but the recommendation of the committee is effectively to do nothing. So if you support a motion to approve is in order, or if you support the recommendation of the committee, simply do nothing. So I'm going to ask now, what is your pleasure? Hearing no motion, this it is dead, actually. Is the correct
Item
term.
7.6 is the business of the committee of the whole meeting from a meeting held July 5th. Is there a report from the chair?
Anything to report, Madam President? The committee of the whole?
Okay. No, that's all right. Item 8.1.1 is the business of the Tourism Development Commission from meetings held July 11th and July 14th. Is there a report from the chair?
Hi. All right, I'll make this brief as well. The commission met twice this past week. First, to have our first meeting with Swim Creative to introduce the work being put first by Swim while learning of their execution timeline and how we will build tourism together in its contractual years. After the meeting, myself and Vice Chair Soliday found a special meeting was in order upon completion of the contracts, as you will see in your agenda. I want to take this time in thanking the Commission for meeting swiftly to discuss and approve these contracts to mirror continuing efforts as we as a Commission have created to do, or have been created to do. With that being said, I'd like to make a motion to award or approve grant award agreement with Travel Superior in the amount of $40,000, and also make a motion to approve the grant awarded agreement with Richard Ironbound Veterans Historical Center in the amount of $243. Excuse me. I'll read that again for you, Jack, if you need me to.
The motion is by Councillor Grasky, the second by Councillor Johnson to approve both grant award agreements. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Seconded that.
Johnson.
Thank you.
Is anybody opposed? The motion carries.
Item 8.2.1 is the business of the Police and Fire Commission from a meeting held June 15th. Is there a report from the chair? No. And item 8.2.2 is the business of the Golf Course Committee. Is there a report from the chair?
there anybody to report from either of these
Okay.
commissions?
All right, moving on to item 10.1, I am recommending approval of miscellaneous licenses.
A motion is by Councilor Fennessy, second by Councilor Bender. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Item 10.2, economic development, planning and port director Cirque is recommending waiving the land sale process and approving the transfer of the Wisconsin Point burial grounds to the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa.
Motion is by Councilor Van Sickle, second by Councilor Bender. Is there discussion? Councilor Harris.
Yeah, I'm just seeking information here. So I understand that these are mass graves that they're currently in, and if so, does anybody know who these individuals might be? Is there any
Yes.
records?
So Councilor Van Sickle did most of the work. I'll answer in brief and then allow her to,
Okay.
if she has anything to add.
All right, thank you.
The two sites, this particular site is on Wisconsin Point. It is the old Wisconsin Point Cemetery. Most of the people that were buried there had indigenous ascent, generally Lake Superior, Ojibwe. At about 100 years ago, the city of Superior, in the process of hoping to develop it, plenty I could say about that, but in the hopes of developing the area, decided to seize that property from the owners of the people that had been living on the point. They exhumed the graves, and when we say mass grave, it's because the people that were exhumed did not get individual graves in the new burial place, which was along the Nemadji River. So that, by any definition, would be considered a mass grave, and in the modern world would be considered an actual crime against humanity. So it's a pretty disturbing story. Most of those remains have now been lost to erosion into the Nemadji River. This process is about returning both sites, and in this case tonight, what's before you is returning the Wisconsin Point site over to, we don't own the Nemadji site. We do own still the Wisconsin Point site. What you are approving today is transferring the deed, actual ownership, to the Fond du Lac Band of Ojibwe. It is a precedent to the process to eventually enter it into federal trust and conceivably make it reservation land. But this would formally give your authorization to transfer to the band. Councilor Van Sickle, anything to add?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. To that point, I would just say that where the records do exist, they are incomplete, and where you can start to really galvanize the information about the individuals that were disinterred from Wisconsin Point after U.S. Steel in the city, appealed a court ruling to make sure they did own the burial grounds. The records read painfully. Sometimes, many times, it will say things like infant unknown or things like that. So I also just wanted to take 1 second to recognize and thank you, Jason Cirque. Over the years, our names will fade from this work, and the work we are about to accomplish tonight, Shelley, I know you have to be here, but I'm really glad that you're here. Teddy, I know that you're here for something else, but I'm really glad you're here also. The work we're about to accomplish is historic on behalf of people we have never met and their relatives who we also may never meet. And when Chief Osagi's family was fighting to stay on the point, they were forcibly removed, and Chief Osagi himself forcibly disinterred and moved to a mass grave in East End. And I know that at times, where is he? At times, Jason, this was likely frustrating and maybe felt hopeless at times between working through the church hierarchy with the diocese and parish councils and Fond du Lac's planning division and their public works department, and Bill Anderson gets a lot of credit for the ground truthing and the deeds and the surveys and the legal descriptions and the research and the vacations through Plan Commission. This has been a very long and difficult process, and I also just want to say thank you to Allison Johnson, who is not here tonight, but also the council, the councils that have come before us, the council of last year who started this phase of it, and the representatives and the senators, the descendants, the tribal nations that have reached out in support. We have had such an incredible opportunity to build on their work. And Kelly Westland, you were my very first call when I started this. So thanks for picking up and being here tonight. I also just wanted to say finally that Frank Boyle's son, Pat Boyle, saw me in Duluth recently, and Frank Boyle used to be a state representative at the assembly level, and said, isn't it crazy that you will never do anything as incredible as this work? And it's really the power of public service, so I hope you can live with that, because I certainly can. So thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Item 10.3, Public Works Director Janigo is recommending approval of an ordinance introduced by the Common Council of the City of Superior to amend City Code Chapter 112, Traffic Code Schedule J, accessible parking zones, to remove accessible parking signs from 1802 North 22nd Street.
Motion is by Councilor Bender, second by Councilor Elm. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Item 10.4, I am recommending approval of an original Class A beer and Class A liquor cider-only license application for Head of the Lakes Management Group, LLC, doing business as Gondik Law Speedway, located at 4700 Tower Avenue, for a period beginning on July 27th and ending on June 30th, 2023.
Motion is by Councilor Bender, second by Councilor Grasky. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Item 10.5, Mayor Payne is recommending approval of a resolution of the City of Superior, Wisconsin, authorizing the purchase of real property from the Library Superior LLC and authorizing execution of a purchase and sale agreement and related documents in connection therewith.
Motion is by Councilor Elm, second by Councilor Bender. Councilors, we have some public comment, but I want to get it, since I am proposing this, I want to introduce it one more time, because there have been a few changes, and obviously in the month and a half we've been working on this as a council. So we have there were a couple of concerns the very first time we brought this, and I tried to really hear those and respond to them as best I could, and we've got a couple of, I think, solutions tonight. First, the council just asked for much more information about the building, and both very soon after that first meeting and now these last 2 days, you've gotten a number of actual documents from Jason. He is here to, he's been our point person on assessing the condition of the building, so he's here to answer any questions you have about that. We've obviously developed a very strong and clear opinion about the condition, and he can speak to all of that. There was some discussion around, rather than purchasing, awarding a grant. I discussed that with many of you. I would just reiterate, I don't believe that is a viable option for saving the building, largely because I think we've demonstrated that private ownership for this particular building has not been successful at saving the building. It was moved into private ownership a very long time ago. Its condition has steadily deteriorated without significant investment, as opposed to buildings that enter public ownership. We are almost universally successful at saving them, so, including vacant lots. Obviously, there's some investment involved, but when you return or add things to the property tax rolls successfully developed, the public almost always gets its money back. And finally, when I met with Councilors Grasky and Herrick, we discussed an amendment to address some of the other concerns. The biggest concern I heard from the council was there just wasn't a plan. I explained to you why I didn't feel that was particularly important, because I liked the idea of keeping our options open. that was not popular with the council, and so I was forced to compromise on that. But I think I think the council ultimately was more responsible than maybe I was in proposing something without a plan. And so they worked with me to help author an amendment that we'll offer after the public comment that articulates a plan and creates some clear limits on the administration so that the council remains in the driver's seat of this project. And we'll go over that amendment because they agreed to it in advance. That will get proposed first. And we can discuss that, but we'll deal with that after public comment. And of course, during debate, I'm free to answer questions. So for now, I would like to move into the public comment period. I have 3 people signed up to speak, the first of which is Teddy Moronic. If you'd like to approach the podium. The rules of public comment, you have exactly 3 minutes to speak. I enforce that rule very rigorously unless the council elects to offer more time. The button is right there at the base. It looks like sideways Wi-Fi. Got it. There are 3 people signed up to speak. I always put a call out if anybody else wants to speak as well after I've exhausted the list. So, Ms. Moronic, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Teddy Moronic, and I'm a member of a small and unfortunately dwindling group whose members worked at both the 2 Carnegie libraries in Superior. I was fortunate enough to work at the main library on Hammond Avenue and to be the last librarian at the East End branch in East End. I've been involved in historic preservation for years, and I've learned a lot. And what I've learned during those years is that you can't save every building, and you shouldn't save every building, but you need to save this building. This building means a lot to the people in Superior, and it means a lot to the people who don't live in Superior. It stood on that corner for 120 years through the generosity of Andrew Carnegie and the Hammond family, who donated the property to build it on. Even though I'm retired, I still do an occasional Facebook posting for the Superior Public Library. And often I will, especially this year during the library's 120th anniversary, I'll often post pictures of the building, and I can assure you that nothing ever receives more comments or more likes than a picture of the Hammond Avenue Library. People just don't like it. They love it. And I worry about what will happen if, those people come back to Superior and it's not there anymore. If it's not where it was when they were a child and they went to Storio or down in the basement or summer reading program or checked out a book from that grand old circulation desk on the top floor. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to a lot of people, and I hope you will consider that and consider what it adds to Superior. We've lost a lot of old buildings. We don't need to lose this one. Thank you.
Next is Tim Meyer.
Thank you for having me here this evening. I'm here actually serving as your chairman of your Historic Preservation Commission. I also am engaged in architectural preservation in my architecture practice in both in Duluth and we have office in Ashland, Wisconsin. I have also been working with the planning and economic development staff to kind of analyze the situation and have made some recommendations to the city regarding how I and the commission feel regarding best path to proceed with this. I think we're here tonight in support of the resolution to purchase the building, and we have some fairly specific reasons why we think the city ought to purchase the building and do a certain amount of stabilization work to help initially preserve the building so that it can be redeveloped. Primarily, I think the city needs to be in control. You've seen some of the efforts that have been made to date to try to preserve the building privately, and those have not worked. And primarily because there is an inequity gap that exists with the building currently that would prohibit almost anyone from coming in and being able to redevelop property. And ultimately, what we want to see is the building be sustainable, generate income, so that it can be operated and maintained through time. And I'd love to see it back on the tax rolls, generating tax revenue for the city of Superior. The building, as you know, has deteriorated to a state here now where it really is very much in danger of being lost. There's been a lot of issues here. There were some temporary protections put in place. Those have failed, and we're really at a point now where the building needs some, fairly specific repairs just to stabilize it so that down the road someone could preserve it. I think my recommendation to the city and to the planning and economic development staff would be to analyze the project to a point to figure out how much that equity gap is, and look at the numbers in terms of what kind of revenue might be able to be generated, and then offer the building for sale, hoping that a private party might come in and be able to redevelop the project. So thank you for having me this evening.
The last person on my list is Kathy Laxo.
My name is Kathy Laxo. I worked as a historian here for many, many years, and the more I learned about Superior, the more impressed I was, not only citywide, but county, even to the state level. And after that, I became a preservationist. But as a preservationist, I've always had two views. One, of course, is the obvious, the beautiful structures and how long they do last because they're well made, and because of their ties to the community, which really the Carnegie, everyone gets some gut reaction to it if they grew up here or went to it. But my other view has always been economic. Buildings over 100 years old, if they're cared for, they can exist so much longer than the new ones. And businesses back over 100 years ago, they put their roots here because they felt an optimism, and people want to come here when they know that a city has a personality, an identity, and one that is unique. I've always called it our personal fingerprint. And in the last 20 years, I was on the preservation committee first long time. Well, when the Carnegie was first threatened, and I'm back on there now. But in the last 20 years, the buildings that I've seen come down have lacked a plan, vision, funding, and maybe interest too, so that nothing was done. But Superior has really come a long way in the last few years. And some of those historic buildings that have been revived have they're really they didn't do that overnight. It took some time, and sometimes finding a new identity, it takes time, and to come into their own. And I think we have a responsibility to hang on to them until that time can come. A beautiful, unique, only in Superior, our fingerprint. The building will pay for itself. Because if people see that this is a thriving city that looks like it values the quality of life, people will want to live here. Businesses will want to come here. So I hope that you will consider that, all of this. Thank you.
That is the end of my list. Would anybody else like to address the council?
Hi, I'm Brian Finstead. I think I know most of you. I just had one perspective that I wanted to share, and I hope I can pull my thoughts together to convey it right. But the thought, sometimes you hear people talk about making comparisons between government and business. And I really don't like doing that because government is not business. But when you're talking about a building and you're talking about rehabilitation and purchase, you're talking about numbers. And a lot of times people talk about the numbers don't make sense or it isn't worth the cost or that type of thing. And I just kind of wanted to share one comparison with business that I think of when I think of specific situations that this falls into. In business, sometimes you hear about loss leader products, and it's where a store might have a product that it's not going to make money on, but that product brings people in the door, and then they do make money in other ways from other products or services. And when I think of a community, I think of the gems of the community as sort of loss leader products. I think of them as the things that make the city worthwhile, or the things that make the city shine, or make people want to come there, make people want to visit it. And I'll just share that I grew up here. Actually, I grew up out in Gordon. Moved into Superior as soon as I got out of school. And then I moved to Minneapolis, and I spent most of my adult life in Minneapolis until not that long ago moving back here. And when we said we were going to move back here, I was so floored about the reactions that I got. People thought I was making the worst mistake of my entire life. All I heard was, that town is a dump. Why would you go there? It's a horrible place. From people who knew nothing about Superior. And I got to say, it was one of the best decisions we ever made in our lives. We absolutely love it here. But I can see there was a long period of time where Superior didn't care about historic preservation. Superior didn't care about aesthetics. Superior didn't care about natural resources. And now we are. But I can honestly say, when I look at those reactions, even though the relationship wasn't direct between this old building didn't make economic sense, or that aesthetic improvement didn't make sense, even though the relationships aren't direct, doesn't mean that they aren't there. And I can see during that time period when Superior did not care about those things, Superior economically hurt itself. And I think, for me, that's the reason why something like the Carnegie is a gem. And when you have a gem, you just stand up for it. You just do. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else like to address the council? If not, I want to begin by offering the amendment, so we can consider that first. If you could pull that up. It is somewhat lengthy, so I've asked Heidi to put it up on the screen so you can read along with me, and then I'll summarize it for you. The amendment, if agreed to, would add 2 items to the end of the resolution, the now therefore be resolved part. The first of which, I have to read this. Following the purchase of the property, the City of Superior shall spend no more than $325,000 on the renovation and improvement of the property, which shall be paid from the city's Historic Rehabilitation Fund from the SLFRF. Any further purchases or expenditures shall require the approval of the Common Council. Item number 5 would say the administration is directed to advertise the building for sale in no more than 18 months from the execution of the purchase agreement. All offers to purchase the property shall be submitted to the Common Council for their approval. The spirit of this amendment, of course, is capping the historic preservation expenditures at $500,000, preventing any other funds from being spent on it by the administration without the leave of council. So if we want to put more money into it, we have to come to you and justify it. But it would allow us to do a lot of the initial work we've already discussed. The second part directs us to put it for sale. And it says you will be deciding when and whether it sells. Keep in mind it says no more than 18 months. That means if it's ready to go, we could be posting it before that. So that is the amendment. First, I have to ask Councilor Grasky and Herrick, are you still comfortable moving this amendment? Yes. Yes. So the motion then is to amend by Councilor Grasky, the second by Councilor Herrick, and we'll begin debate on this amendment. Discussion. Councilor Elm.
All right. Thank you for everybody's work on this so far. I guess I'd like to ask Director Sirk if he could come to the podium here. And there's been a lot of documents that have been sent to us in the past couple of days, and I don't know if there could be like a summarization of what's been sent, and then
Actually,
particular
that might not be germane to the amendment. We will do that.
Sure.
But that's more germane to the resolution proper.
The second part of my question is, which would be pertain to this, is what is $325,000 going to get us?
Well, I can definitely talk a little bit about that, and I think Tim addressed it a little bit. They did a little bit of work for us on some of the roof estimates, because we know that that's a big part of this whole deal. So that will get us according to Tim, about $200,000 to $250,000 will get us a roof. It will get us a membrane, as well as something that is acceptable historically to protect the roof. Probably, I'm thinking, Tim, it's probably an asphalt, but it is historically appropriate. So that is what we would be accomplishing with that.
Further discussion on the amendment? Councilor Johnson.
You mentioned that it does say no more than 18 months, and then said it could be ready to sell before then. What would constitute ready to sell?
The biggest thing would be a buyer, if there was an offer. So technically, this amendment doesn't require us to bring you a potential buyer before 18 months. After that, it would. So it doesn't matter how outlandish the offer is. After 18 months, you're going to hear about it. Beforehand, we'll be evaluating, but if somebody made a legitimate offer or had a plan, of course we're going to start working on a development agreement right away. Nothing, of course, prohibits the council from posting it for sale before that as well.
That doesn't really answer my question, though. What constitutes it ready to sell? Just an offer, or is it completing the roof, or is it completing all of the, or up to $325,000?
Oh, I think.
What constitutes it ready to put it on the market?
I think I understand. That's a more difficult question to answer, but generally speaking, and relating a little bit to what Mr. Meyer said before, marketability. So if, and again, posting for sale is a very specific term to make sure that we follow through on this agreement, but seeking out a potential buyer or developer, we'll work on that almost from the beginning. In fact, there's been some folks that are interested in the building. It's just in its current condition, it's not a worthwhile investment. So to me, I think it needs a couple key things. Obviously, a roof. We'll stretch that 325 as far as it'll go. It'd be nice if that covered things like mechanicals and electric, because that starts to make it functional in many places in the building. Accessibility is going to be a major goal, and that will be, this amendment, while it prohibits us from automatically spending more money on it, we will likely bring proposals. One of the most likely is, put an elevator in it using probably a CDBG grant, something that we would only be eligible for if we owned it. So or if it were in nonprofit status. But so that's an account that's what it does. We have enough money for it. We've done it before. So if it started to become viable, then yes, we would start to sell it. Now, doesn't necessarily mean it is viable at 18 months. If nobody will buy it, then we have to keep having conversations. But it will remain for sale. Further discussion on the amendment. Councilor Sweeney.
So after 18 months, assuming we get no offers, what do we do then?
Well, it's a city building at that point, and so it would be part of our general building portfolio. It would have something of a unique place right now in that we don't have any, historic empty buildings that we own today. That has not been true in the past. That's happened to us plenty. So it would sit there, and again, the stability and safety of the building is obviously our first priority, but the mission is still to move this to the private sector. So we want to continue to look at what investments make that possible, and we would still continue conversations with developers. To Ms. Laxo's point, sometimes it takes a while. In the case of the vacant lot on where Central High School stood, that was well over a decade, I think. And then Fairlawn, as I mentioned at our first meeting, sat for a very long time doing almost nothing until we decided to make it a museum. So again, the goal is to get it back on the tax rolls as quickly as possible. That may require investment, but in terms of the way we invest, it's like any other city asset. So you would start to, for example, see it in the CIP priorities. If the council wants to start elevating this, either to get it on the tax rolls as quickly as possible or to rehabilitate it as quickly as possible, that would be something the council just have to decide is how important is it in any given year.
So we've had the library itself, the building is, and I hear the passion and I hear the hope for the people that speak about it, but they all have some financial concerns. What are we going to do with this? How much is this going to cost us? Where are we going with this? Let's make it viable. But in the last X amount of years, nobody has come forth, okay? Nobody saw a great opportunity even if, before when it was, I don't know what the price they would have sold it to them for, but it was far less than we're willing to buy here today. So I think past history has to be at least a concern. I think we're putting the horse in the cart here, and when we get to the main issue, I'll talk about some other items, but I just think we're doing things backwards here.
Further discussion on the amendments? Councilor Fennessy.
When the question was asked about the 325, Director Cirque had indicated that that's for the roof, and then right after that, then you mentioned some mechanical work and then an elevator and the roof. I mean, certainly we can't do that all for $325,000, but that's what this resolution is saying. So I think it's already setting the stage for a false sense of hope that we can buy it and we're only going to spend $325,000.
No, I did not say that includes an elevator. That would have to come later. If we're going to make it accessible, accessibility improvements would come from CDBG. That requires it being part of the action plan. The advisory committee would have to agree to that, as well as the council. I was just saying they have before, and so it's eligible for that. The 325 is the roof. It's primarily the roof. When I mentioned mechanicals, the estimate you heard from Director Cirque and Mr. Meyer does not amount to 325. There would be left over. My first priority after roof is mechanicals and electrical. So we will be able to afford that, or we won't. But if it needs more improvements, that requires council support.
Okay. And then can you help me understand how a resolution like this works? So if we were to pass this today, basically what we're doing is we're forcing a future council that could be a different makeup than this council, 18 months from now. We're basically forcing them to list it in 18 months, and we're kind of forcing them to only spend $325 from the SLFRF. So can you help me understand how that works, how we today can force a future council with a resolution like this?
Yes, it doesn't bind a future council, it binds the administration, which the councils have the power to do. So if this resolution passes and is signed, it is, for all intents, it is a legislative instrument, is an act of law by the council, and therefore the administration, all of our parts from the mayor on down, is required to comply with it.
But you're already talking about, even with the passing of this, you're going to then go and look at an elevator and look at mechanicals. I mean, you're saying two different things here. You're saying it's going to bind me from not doing anything outside of this, but then you're also saying after this, then we're going to look for CDBG money for the elevator and the mechanicals and all that. So I mean, you're saying two different things.
No, I don't think so. It says I can't do anything else without council approval. So make no mistake, whatever the final fate of the Carnegie is will require more investment. I think we've been very upfront about that. Some of the concern I heard both at the council meeting when we first debated this and in some of the private meetings is, well, since it's a city building, you're just going to dump the whole building fund into it, which conceivably we could. If there is a budgeted fund for building improvements and it's our building, yeah, we would, by law, I would have the authority to do that. This takes away that authority and says all new work council's going to approve. It just prevents us from moving the whole administration and all of the funds that we control towards that building. You could put all kinds of money into a building like this. This limits that and keeps the council in the driver's seat making those decisions, limiting the power that the mayor usually has to make those investments.
Okay, so it doesn't bind the future council to abide by this.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
With the exception that it stands unless and until a future council repeals it, makes a new resolution countermanding it. So a council can't bind a council. They can bind the administration all day and forever.
Until another council unbinds it.
Exactly. Further discussion on the amendment. Councilor Herrick.
Yeah, just one question. Mr. Osterlin applied for a grant for $3 million. Of course, he was the owner of the building. Now, since we're the owner of the building, can we apply for any grants and be more eligible to receive them than Mr. Osterlin had the opportunity to do?
Yes, I would argue much more likelihood of success. Buildings in private or in public or nonprofit ownership are usually far more successful for grants. So for example, the CDBG money I'm talking about, that's a federal grant issued to the city of Superior that we administer. So we can effectively issue ourselves grant money for it. The particular, we've missed out on the opportunity for that grant that Mr. Oshlin applied for, but public institutions, especially municipalities, are often much more successful at that. Hard to get a grant for as a private company. Councilor Sweeney.
I would just like to ask Frog of the council binding administration. Is that your understanding?
Well, I guess I've never really analyzed that in the context of council's binding administrations. You folks act on things that extend into the future all the time. You're really never more than 53 weeks away from a potential 100% turnover in your council composition, and you act on things that have life beyond a year and a half, 2 years all the time. I don't know how to summarize the relationship or the binding of council on administration versus council on another council. This council will acquire this building tonight, I'm guessing, and you'll own it. So automatically, that's going to bind future councils to make a decision about that building, whether it be infuse additional funds as an investment into the building and try to make it, try to bring it closer to minimum code compliance, or put it on the market and have it be someone else's, ultimately under someone else's ownership. So I don't know how to draw a clean distinction between councils, binding councils, and councils only versus binding administrations. I think that line actually gets squiggly.
If I could be more specific about the question, I think if I understand Councilor Sweeney's question, this amendment, if it passed, says the administration is directed to advertise the building for sale in no more than 18 months. When 18 months' time has passed, must we post it for sale?
Well, I would expect to post it for sale in 18 months, because that seems to be what the instrument says. That someone should mark up their calendar for 18 months after September the 23rd of this year, which seems to be the closing date, if that stays the same. And someone should remind you folks 18 months after that date that we have an obligation to advertise or market the building for sale. Otherwise, I don't know how we're being true to the resolution.
I think the point is we have an obligation to be true to the resolution. That was... Okay. Further discussion on the amendment? Councilor Fennessy.
Sorry, just one more question. So with this, the first line there, does this, I know it says the city shall not spend more than $325,000. Does this also approve spending that $325,000 from ARPA funds so we could get to work right away? Like I think of like a TARP.
Yes. That is my understanding of it. I'm seeing Councilors Grasky and I think Herrick nod. That's my understanding of this, that yes, it authorizes it.
Okay, so it
shall spend no more than.
It authorizes the $325,000 and also caps it at the $325,000. So we wouldn't, I guess my question is we don't have to come back next meeting or 2 meetings from now to say, okay, now we need to put a TARP on. We need to approve the funds. This in a sense does that. Okay,
yes.
Thanks.
A person could argue it requires us to spend the whole amount, but, well, no more than. Councilor Sweeney.
One more question. Is the 325 for capital improvements only?
Yes. I can't think of, can you give me an example of something other than capital improvements?
Certainly. I can give you 2 or 3. Let's say, have we done any marketing study on the building? How have we arrived at the sale price? Have we spent money to get a so-called expert realtor, whoever it is, to tell us that that's a fair and fair price for the city? That's what I'm saying, money like.
Okay, I think I understand your question. I think it's possible, but the next words here, 325,000 on the renovation and improvement of the property. So, well, yes, a person could argue that we do that all the time in economic development, and it's actually, we tend to pay for that stuff out of the general fund, or sometimes the economic development fund, but we have contracted services lines in most of our budgets. So this is something planning's used to be doing. But I don't read it that way. I believe this is for renovation and improvement, and to me, that's capital. I think if we need to be doing feasibility studies, market studies, that comes out of economic development fund and contracted services within planning. This, again, the question is on the amendment, not the final vote. Is there any further discussion? Then hearing none, the vote is whether to approve the amendment, both items. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. No. The motion carries. This is the main motion as amended, the resolution. Discussion. Councillor Johnson.
I feel like we have another option available to us other than the city purchasing this building. For example, a public-private partnership. I mentioned this at the first meeting. Have we heard, maybe Director Sir could answer some of these questions for me, but have we heard anything from, I would say, what we're hearing from Mr. Osterlund, the current owner, is that he's not willing to engage in a public-private partnership where we would, maybe with the redevelopment authority, join in and give him some grant funding to help bridge that gap that we've heard about tonight, that funding gap.
So I've not heard a formal proposal on a public-private partnership, but he has obviously broached the subject. We do public-private partnerships, but that's usually just a term that we apply to giving money to an economic development project. It's almost always undertaken in the form of a development agreement, and it's awarded at the completion of that project. We do it all the time, and in fact, we offered it when Mr. Osterlund purchased the building 5 years ago. We offered it right out the gate. I offered my strong support for a public-private partnership. Do the project. In fact, what I was going to try to sell the council on was $500,000 in whatever the building cost, $500,000 from the city to help make that happen at the end of the project, as we've done with every other public-private partnership. In the 5 years, that hasn't happened, so we've never been able to create a development agreement. Now, I'm not saying we can't give it up front. We have done that before. I've never been a party to that. The last one we did that we gave it up front was, I think, Kestrel, where, and it's happened before. Plenty of cities do that. You give a lot of money up front, but then you accept all of the risk of it. And if it doesn't happen, the money's just gone.
Okay. The second part of that, and that answers a lot of my questions, but when we come together as a council and we're looking to spend $500,000 up to the information that Director Sirk has sent to us, millions of dollars more, I think we need to have some sort of viable option. Where this amendment does fall short is that we don't know if this is going to sell in 18 months or thereafter. We don't know what the next steps are for this building, and that's what makes me nervous about jumping into this as a government entity. Where I think we could make some ground and make some headway is to put a roof on this building. We have somebody that has a clear vision for this building already. You mentioned your support of it already. We have somebody that's willing to continue the ownership of this building in Mr. Osterlund. If we were to just bridge that gap in funding for him by putting a roof on it, maybe we spend the $500,000 in support of his project and begin that public-private partnership. And so that, for that reason, I won't be voting for this amendment.
I just want to clarify my position. I did support an investment in the project 5 years ago, and subsequent to it. I would have been happy to do it if he won that $3 million grant as a final award after a completed project, as we've done with with all of the agreements that I've signed. I do pay-as-you-go and reimbursement. And so that was something, the reason that I no longer support that is the vision didn't pan out after years of attempts, grant applications, in searches for investors. The building as it currently exists simply was not financially viable. To me, it requires public investment up front, and the only way that I've ever supported that is where we own the assets. I don't mean to debate you. I just want to clarify my position.
That makes sense, and I didn't want to put words in your mouth. And I know that you had supported it in the past, but what has changed in that 5 years is we've had an unprecedented downturn in economic with COVID. The vision that Mr. Osterlund has with a co-working space seems to be more viable now than it did even before COVID held up a lot of this project. So I would encourage us to reach out to Mr. Osterlund again and his partners and try to work out a development agreement.
Councilor Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Is Mr. Osterlund here?
Not that I'm aware.
Okay. I just wanted to check. As a member of the Redevelopment Authority for 5 years, I don't know if I've ever met him, so I didn't know what he looked like, so I just wanted to ask. How many buildings have we sold to the Redevelopment Authority? Do you know that?
No, the number of buildings, certainly plenty of land has moved to the Redevelopment Authority.
Correct. We've approved a lot of land deals. It's not, I don't understand if we have ever, as a council, sold a building that Rex would have purchased. Am I off base here?
We actually did purchase a building. It was not in our hands very long, but it was a process with the New York Block. New York Block was a tax deed property that the county took. Of course, all of you probably remember that. It was I think the library was there, Zona was there, and then there were rooms upstairs. We actually held it for a while and did interviews, RFPs, for developers for that. So we did actually own that building and sold it. I believe gave it away. We ended up purchasing it from the county. They were not as gracious as they are now. We ended up purchasing it. For some reason, $40,000 is in my mind. So the council did have enough vision to do that at that time to save that building. We've got 23 units, senior living in there, as well as a building that's on a historic register. So as well as I think we visited some of the sites there today. So we have done those types of things, Councilor Van Sickle.
Thank you. That, I think, was before my time. And how much would you guess in economic investment that the New York Block has generated?
Oh boy, that's tough to think. I know it was about a $5 million construction project, I believe. It was a tax credit project. Then you've got businesses on the bottom. We've got a counselor that owns a business there. We've got those types of folks. Generate. It's hard to say, but I know there was about a $5 million investment in that building. So yes. Okay. Plus, it also generates income for the housing authority who manages it. You've got other factors there as well, and folks that lease it as well as property tax.
Thank you. And just 2 more questions. In the application that you submitted, your department submitted on behalf of Mr. Osterlund, did we go through a process where we fact-checked and verified all of the numbers in his estimate that tallied up to $3 million? And my question is it possible that was inflated?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Mr. Osterlund was very, this started at probably a $4 million, or actually a $3 million project, I think, Mayor, at the beginning. It just, once he started looking into it a little bit more, inflation, as well as, the COVID thing, things went up. And I do not believe they were inflated at all.
The The grant application was for $3 million to fund what amounted to a $7 million project.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So two different sides.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The $3 million was a gap filler. That was a gap filler.
Thank you.
Yes.
I guess I would just finish with, I appreciate how much work this council has put in with the amendments and the long discussions and the questions. But it's really difficult to have a partnership with a vacant partner. I've not seen him, Mr. Osterlin, at these meetings. So if Mr. Osterlin had interest in advocating for a position other than what is being proposed, I would be very surprised to learn that. Thank you.
I just want to clarify that the $3 million, $7 million, that was, again, for his very specific project. And so it was to make it viable wherein he could achieve financing. So we tend to throw that number around quite a bit as the number necessary to develop the building to the point that is marketable. It's not necessarily true. That's the number we felt would help him secure financing to do this much more substantial project. So obviously, I don't want to downplay this. There's money that has to go into this to make it viable. Further discussion on the resolution. Councilor Elm.
Yeah, I want to just go back to what I was originally going after was the first meeting, we were asking about the condition of this building. And, there's a number of documents that are sent to us, environmental studies, a quick review done by the city. I mean, what is the kind of the summarization of the condition of the building and some of those documents that were sent, Jason?
Yeah, thanks, Councilor Elm. So I have data dumped on you, and I'm sorry about that. I think, and my email kind of stated it, was just wanted to let the council know, and as well as others, that there has been a ton of work that has gone into this. I think I've sent you the project plans, also the project manual, which I've really never seen anything like that on when you submit or have a plan for these types of things, as well as phase ones, which pretty much every bank or institution wants you to complete to make sure you're not getting into some large contamination type of things or asbestos, which there's of course asbestos in these types of things, so we all know that. But I just wanted to show the council that the amount of work that has been done up to this point, it's extremely, extremely important that you know that. We actually supplied, when we had Tim do the estimate for us, we supplied him with what their plans were in reinforcing the building. That brought us to say, hey, did they actually do that? Because we did permit that work. And on June 22nd, we went with building inspection in there to look at that. And yes, that work was done. The roof was stabilized, and pretty much everything was done in there except for the membrane was not put on it. The tarp was placed on it, and with the intention of coming back and placing the membrane, although COVID hit, prices went up, and things kind of started to drop off after that. So that's essentially, that roof has been stabilized. So that number that I gave you earlier with the 2 to 250 on actually placing a membrane and a roof structure on it, or not a structure, but the actual asphalt shingles or the shingling, is that number of 200 and 250 just for that, which you wouldn't think that there's a lot of square footage up there, but there's a ton of square footage up there. Councilor Elm, just other points. We've also talked about condition of the building. I verbally have engaged with the structural engineer that did the planning. You probably saw, if you looked at the plans, you probably saw that there was an enormous amount of structural engineering that has to go into this building. He is basing, of course, a lot of that structural engineering on what he knows about these buildings, all right? He's not opening walls. He's able to see in some of the walls because some of them are open or they have exposed lath, but he is looking at that and making determinations on assumptions of buildings that he has looked at. In my discussions with him last month, or late last month, or actually earlier this month, I'm sorry, he is allowing me to say that this building is safe. This building is not going to come down. However, it needs a roof and it needs to be stabilized in that manner. We got to keep the rain from coming in. In my observations of being there on June 22nd, It's not the worst I've seen. It's, of course, not the best I've seen. When I talk a little bit about the New York block, that place was a disaster. There was food in the fridges. There was, those types of things. Here, we have kind of an open book. The walls are good. The desk is still there. The racks are still there. I don't know if some of you have probably seen this. But it does need to be stabilized, and we do need to get a roof on it. So my hope is that we continue to move forward with this. I like the kind of the limitations on this, and I really want to emphasize that this building is safe. It's in manageable shape right now, but we can't continue to let it deteriorate. That's my opinion.
Thanks, Director.
Further discussion, Councilor Sweeney.
Jason, could you stay there for a minute, please? Thank you. So, in my world, you can say that we have an engineer / architect which is certified with this type of work, that the building is basically sound. And we have that in some form of documentation.
Mm-hmm. I am hoping to get that. Okay. Timing has been an issue with that right now.
But right now, you can't answer that in the affirmative.
I can only paraphrase what he has told me verbally on the phone.
Verbally,
yes, sir.
Right. Okay, but we don't have it in writing yet.
Not yet, sir.
Okay.
The agreement, though, Councilor, the purchase agreement does require us to have that.
Right, but I'm just saying right now, okay?
Even if this were to pass tonight, we can't execute a purchase agreement without inspection, full inspection of the building.
Okay. How did we arrive at the purchase price? Take me through that.
We negotiated it.
But what, from our side, the city side, what figures did we use?
I mean, essentially, we look at kind of what the value is, what he paid for it, which was $125,000 about 5 years ago. All right. Okay. We look at some of the improvements that were done, the stabilization, the amount of work that he has done on the project. He started much higher. I believe that if this thing goes on the market, it is going to be much higher. Okay? We got him to negotiate to 175. So that's where we were at.
Did the city itself bring in any expert from the outside to say, I think this building is worth 400 or it's worth 100?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. And I think the mayor alluded to this. We haven't done any marketing analysis yet either, right?
No, okay. Not yet. Nope.
But that's to come?
I'm hoping that at some point we'll have to do that. We'll have to go through an RFP process. And as the mayor said, if we get control of this building, it will be a priority to market.
But certainly that could be done before we control the building.
Yes, it could be.
Okay.
If it's, I think misspeaking, if you guys approve it tonight, if you folks approve it tonight, then I'll probably start working on it. And actually, we've probably worked on it before. Andrew purchased it. When the Friends still owned it, we were looking for folks as well. When Andrew purchased it and, developed the plan for it, that kind of ceased. So we'll have to kick that up again, yes.
Okay, and then my last item, the estimate for the remodeling of it, so to speak, to bring it up to code, let's speak.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do we know what that figure is?
We don't know what that figure is yet, Counselor.
And that, whatever that figure might be, and somebody could do that by now.
Absolutely, and I think Tim has actually kind of worked on that a little bit, and we just need to refine those numbers.
And then we could come up with, based upon that, we could probably come up with a annual maintenance cost.
I'm assuming, yes, sir.
Okay. It just seems to me that some of these things should have been done before we're trying to, we've had it for a period of time. It seems to me we'd have done some of these things before we're going to even put a roof on it. I don't know. I was struck by the information that we received tonight on the bridge, okay, and the process they follow, okay. I don't think we followed that process, okay. It seemed to me that some of these things should have been done before we even considered putting a roof on it, okay. We've had some time, and I don't know how the roof is, I realize that's, seems to be the focal point of trying to save the building because the roof is leaking and whatever, but, so some of these things that I've mentioned, I think they should have been generated, should have been moving along by now, and so, I'm not for the project, I'm not against it, but we still don't have enough information for me. Thank you.
Just to clarify 2 points there, Counselor, we almost always would do this stuff beforehand. In fact, in the case of the Princess, we've been working on it for well over a year, probably longer. The reason that it's not happening here, one, a developer was working on a lot of that privately, and those efforts failed. And in this case, it's much more of an emergency. It's not that the roof is leaking. There is no roof. It's water is regularly coming into the building and exposing it to significant damage. In as much as you can have a historic emergency in the city, that's what this is. That's the sense of urgency. Typically, we would move a much slower process. Apologies for interrupting. I believe Councilor Grasky, you were next.
I'm good.
Councilor Bender.
Yes, I just wanted to mention two things. The first thing was, and I've mentioned this a number of times before, that my wife was an original investor in this. And then the other one is, when are we going to get to the point that we can vote on this? Are we going to vote on this now, or are we going to stay here all night?
I hope to vote at the end of debate tonight.
Thank you.
Further discussion. Councilor Fennessy.
So to follow up on Councilor Sweeney's question, so if I understand this right, the $175,000, that's not based on like a market analysis done from like a realtor, as like any of us would rely on if we're purchasing a home for ourselves.
Yes, because this is not a home. In fact, it's such a unique building. I don't know how you would appraise it. I don't know how you compare it to, say, other Carnegie libraries. There's not a. I don't know how you would comp it to come up with what its natural value.
Okay, so it's not based on a market analysis. It's not based on an appraisal either, right?
No, it's based on what we can get the building for.
Okay, it's not even based on the tax assessed value.
No.
Okay, so we've got three mechanisms that we could have used to solidify that we're buying this at a fair price. We ignored all three of those and landed on a number that the developer said, well, I've got about 150,000 into it, and then a little bit more, you can bail me out for 175,000. Is what this looks like. We're not basing this on anything. We're not basing this on any professional saying that this is what it's worth. And we're just supposed to go along with that as if that's a normal thing that a municipality does, which is not a normal thing. Anytime we sell something, anytime we buy something, it's always based on something. But here we're basing this on, this is what the developer wants to get out of it. The city cannot be the place to bail a bad investment out. And I realize there's a much broader end goal here, but to just land on a number that the developer has about 175,000 in, and that's what we're going to give, I think is foolish. But going back to maybe Director Surik, I've got sorry. Yeah, so do I. So with this, you had mentioned that we've got the project plans, the project manual, the environmental survey. Building inspection has looked at the roof and said that it was stabilized, even though I thought Mr. Meyer said that work that they did has failed. You've had a conversation. We at this point, we don't have a structural analysis done with that yet.
No.
That's to come.
That's to come
before the closing.
That would be our goal, is to have an assessment before closing, for sure.
So if that structural analysis comes back and it's like there's absolutely no way that we then have an out, correct?
I mean, that would be a decision we'd have to make it from an administrative standpoint.
Well, the purchase agreement requires us to inspect it, and
right.
so if it doesn't satisfy the representations of the seller, we're out. Yes, like any other inspection.
Okay, and then I just wanted to also clarify that with the structural engineer, you said that it's that he's basing this on other buildings of this style and this and that. He's been in the building, right? The structural? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I've actually met him a couple of times when he was doing it a couple of years ago. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
good. And then I think that might be all, for you, but
Yeah, just to
please.
kind of clarify what Tim, I think, was saying, is that the tarp failed.
Oh, yeah.
The structural stuff underneath has not failed.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. And then, Mayor Payne, maybe I missed it when Councilor Sweeney asked what Plan B is. So if we approve that resolution, the 18 months, if in 18 months we can't sell it, what's Plan B? Because we've talked all different levels, whether we invest a little bit more or we invest $1 million or we invest $5 million. I mean, we've talked all the way up to $12 million. What? And when you asked me, unless I missed it, but what's Plan B if we list this and it doesn't sell?
You continue to list it, continue to protect it, restore it as necessary. It becomes, it falls to the council's priorities of both what they want to do with it long term. They can entertain any and all proposals at that point. So if it is completely unmarketable, of course we look at why and we continue to market it and invest in it as necessary, as with any other project like this.
And then I just wanted to clarify just a couple things. In the form of like a development agreement, you're right. We normally don't give the money up front, but we do that all the time with grants. And this would be coming from the historic preservation fund in the form of, we could do it in the form of a grant. Last month we just gave out, it was $77,000 in grants to small businesses in the city, and we didn't require them to do the work and then we'll reimburse you. We could always partner with this developer to assist with putting the roof on, and we could do that without purchasing the building, and we could all accomplish that same goal of preserving the Carnegie Library in the form of a grant, where half down now, half down after it's completed. We do that all the time with the small business grant application. We did that with other grants that we do. And so, I mean, to say that we can't do it and we have to wait till it's done, we do that. The other thing I wanted to at least just clarify is I keep hearing that the city's the only one that can save this, or the city's the only one that can do that. But I think in the broader picture, we're ignoring some of the significant private successful investments that we've seen in Superior. We've got the old city hall just right across the street. We've got the old police building down, with the Spirit Room. The work Mark Hubbard has done on the Empire Block, the work the new owners have done at the Roosevelt, numerous historical churches across Superior. You've got other privately owned homes across the Superior that have put a focus in saving their historic homes. So I mean, I only want to point that out because I don't want us to neglect the good work that some private investments have done. And then if we buy this for $175,000 today, and we put in $350,000, and then we sell it in 18 months, the only thing that we've accomplished is we wasted $175,000, because we can still accomplish this $350,000 investment without the $175,000 investment. In fact, we could, instead of investing $350,000, we could just invest $350,000 plus $175,000 and do a more substantial work. I don't think we have to buy the building to do the work. And I think we all agree that the Carnegie needs to be saved. I agree with that. The Carnegie needs to be saved. It's a wonderful piece of Superior's history that needs to be saved, but the role of the city needs to be there to step in at the very last resort, and I don't think we're at that last resort when we've got an owner who's willing to do some kind of a public partnership where all he needs is some money to put a roof on. We're not at that last resort where it's time for the city to step in. We've got to first exhaust all of our opportunities before we take on this massive liability that could turn into, we've heard numbers as high as $12 million. So we have to we have to realize that we all want the Carnegie to be saved. We can do that. We can preserve it while the current owners get their stuff together, and maybe that revitalizes it. We can do that until they find a new owner. We don't have to buy it to put a new roof on. We can do that through a grant process.
The only thing I have to correct, the small business grant program only provides funds after they have been spent by the developer. They are a reimbursement for actual expenses issued. But we do issue grants up front. They are almost exclusively to nonprofit organizations, though. Councilor Bender.
I'll remind Mr. Prell that they're limited to speak only twice on any issue, and a lot of people have been speaking more than twice.
I've actually kept count at your request, Councilor, and we're still good, but we're getting there. Further discussion? Hearing none, would you like a roll call? Yes. The motion is to approve the resolution as amended, which again would purchase the Carnegie Library, cap our spending at an additional $325,000 after the purchase, and require us to post it for sale for 18 months. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilor Bender.
I approve, yes.
Councilor Sweeney?
No.
Councilor Fennessy?
No.
Councilor Elm?
Yes.
Councilor Ludwig?
Yes.
Councilor Herrick?
Yes.
Councilor Johnson?
No.
Councilor Grasky?
Yes.
Councilor Ledeen?
Yes.
Councilor Van Sickle?
Yes.
I count 7-3, and that motion carries. Thank you, councilors.
Item 10.6, Mayor Payne is recommending approval of the 2022 Superior Bid Operating Plan and Budget.
Just a quick background here, councilors. This is required for your approval annually. I serve as a board member on the Business Improvement District. That is board. That is why I'm presenting this. It would almost always be presented by the executive director, but as I think all of you know, the executive director has retired and was only very recently replaced. An announcement that I am pleased to make right now. Kelly Peterson, at the last minute, agreed to join us here, and pleased to announce will be the new executive director of the Superior Business Improvement District. I will save the applause and congratulations. We're nearing the end of the meeting, so I hope that she will stay and you can all congratulate her in person. I very much do not want her to answer questions on this. She was not present for the development of this operating plan and budget. I was. In fact, I made many direct contributions. So I will answer your questions as best I can, but before we do, I should ask, what is your pleasure on approving the bid operating plan and budget?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motions by Councilor Fennessy, second by Councilor Johnson. Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay.
Item 10.7, Economic Development, Planning, and Port Director Cirque is recommending approving a resolution recommending amending the Harbor Development Statement of Intentions to include the General Mills Shoreline Stabilization Project and approving the amended 3-year Statement of Intentions for the years 2023 through 2025. Director Cirque has also requested that the record reflect that the amended Statement of Intention also includes the Fraser Shipyard's Dry Dock Covering Project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is by Councilor Bender, second by Councilor Elm. Jason, why is the record reflecting that?
It was in there. It just.
Because I forgot to put it on the memo and it got copied wrong onto the actual
memo.
Yes, the memo. The resolution is okay.
Okay.
But the memo was wrong, and Camilla just took the RE for that. I think we're fine.
I believe, councilors, you've all received the resolution with more than 24 hours notice. I'm considering this in order. Councilor Sweeney?
No.
Any discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries. Unless there is business by councilors, which I don't see, we have no further business and are adjourned. Thank you, councilors.
Oh, feels good to stand up.
You went out for halftime, didn't you?
Yeah, right. I had to go pee.
Went to refill his, soda pop.
Some lunch out there too?
But you know, Jack, old kidneys, they get to a point.
Boy, I'm a lot older than you are.
I won't contradict